Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's a bit later than it normally is, almost 7 p.m. when I'm actually doing this one. I think last week's was a late episode too. But before I get started with the Q&A, didn't see any sort of feedback in regards to the change to the sponsor list. So for now, I'm going to keep that. I saw one person suggest stacking the layers for chroma keys to make them wider, I suppose. But if people are enjoying what we're doing for the sponsor list on Patreon now, then we're going to keep that. We're going to stop bringing it up at the start of every show. That way you guys don't have to hear that. However, one thing I totally forgot to do last week, I'd still like to thank our patrons of darkness because they do go above and beyond for the channel in regards to their monetary support. On top of that, they always come by the stream. They always contribute towards Mondays with Mr. Happy. They're always super active. So, of course, our patrons of darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni. Both of you, thank you very much for your continued support, and thank you to all of our other patrons as well. Hopefully you're okay with your name being listed here on the front, and probably, I think, on the back end of the video as well. But with that, another thank you. I hadn't actually been paying attention to how many views Mondays with Mr. Happy gets. It's something I'm going to produce every week, so the amount of views it gets is kind of irrelevant to me. It's something that allows me to connect with the people who watch the videos, answer questions. Whether or not they're the answers people want, it's another story. But I guess with the increased interest in Final Fantasy XIV, there's been a lot of people watching Mondays with Mr. Happy, way more than what I'm used to. So those of you tuning in every week, thanks. Just wanted to add a little thank you in for all of you as well. With that, like I said, it is a little bit late for me since I'm an early sleeper. So let's get to the questions. All right, first question, hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great week with Savage. We'll probably talk about that in a later question because it didn't go quite the way I wanted to, especially the way that it ended. So my major question is, with Monk and Samurai using the same gear, how much skill speed is too much versus too little? Because Samurai feels good with around 1000, I almost said accurate technically, 1000 to 1500, but I'm still feeling really slow in DPS compared to Dragoon. Well, first of all, you need to know Dragoon and Monk are monsters. Samurai's personal DPS is okay, but because they don't generate anything for raid DPS, their personal DPS output doesn't really make up for it in the current standings. I really think Samurai is gonna need a little bit of a boost to really put them in a, I guess, more of an acceptable spot. It just sucks that after all these years, you know, they've gotten it right with Black Mage, but with Machinist and Samurai, it feels like they could still give them more love. And instead, Monk got a ton of love with the patch, so really unfortunate. As for skill speed, I think Samurais do 1624 for 2.37 GCD before they actually use any of their skills. I don't think Monk wants anything like that. I think Monk and Samurai have pretty different desires when it comes to skill speed overall. But yeah, I mean, that should, I think it's either 1523 or 1624. I can't remember because I don't really remember the skill speed tiers as well as I probably should. But feel free, somebody comment on that. What is in the comment section of this video, be sure to put what the actual skill speed tier is. I could look it up on the Balance Discord right now, but I'm in the middle of the video. So somebody comment with the recommended skill speed for Samurai. And I don't think there's a recommended skill speed for Monk, but I'd be okay with being wrong with that statement as well. So if I'm wrong with that, call me out in the comment section as well. I wish I had better info for you, but I don't have the numbers like ingrained since I'm not really playing those jobs. All right, this one was a lot of text, and while it's another one of those, like, I guess, stat-based questions, it does bring up an interesting topic, so I think I'll take it. Go play with the banana. Don't scratch the car. Yeah. Aloha hopefully won't be much of a monster in this video. Oh, who am I kidding? You guys want him to be a monster in this video. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Long-time viewer, first-time asker. Hello, by the way. Now that Savage is out, I want to ask about BIS-related stuff, and for this I'll be using Samurai as an example since I'm a Samurai main. Is the Eden weapon versus the augmented Phantasmagoria weapon? Is it better to chase the strength increase given by the Eden weapon, which gives det and determination, or would it be better to go for the proper stat boost with the augmented Phantasmagoria with crit and skill speed? 2, is having the maximum item level really the most optimal way to go, or should we consider stat optimizing now in 5.05? More power to you, and I always enjoy your content, especially stay the realm in your dungeon guides. May you ever walk in the Papega glamour of the crystal. All right, so you know how to really get my attention there at the end. So I'll take both of these questions, kind of lump them up into an answer. I don't know personally, based on stat scaling, which of those is going to be better specifically for Samurai. I will tell you that on average, the things that are valued the most are main stat increases, and more importantly than anything, weapon skill damage increases. So if I actually do have the game open right now, I'd like to assume most of the time that 5 item level difference is accompanied by a weapon damage increase, and that is a massive amount of efficiency. Even just a single point just outweighs so much in regards to main stat and off stat that it usually is the prime determining factor. There have been cases in the past where there has been a zero weapon damage difference between the raid weapon and the augmented tombstone weapon. I don't think that's the case with this one though. Augmented Deep Shadow Blade is 121 physical damage. And I'm going to go over here to the Eden Relic Exchange, which you guys can't see me doing. And let's see, the Acrifa and the Eden Grace Blade is 122. So yeah, that one on top of the strength, on top of the weapon, and on top of the overall accumulation of substats, yeah, I'd have to imagine the Eden Grace Blade blows the augmented one away, because weapon damage and main stat are just such a huge thing. It's not always the case. There have been situations where the raid weapon is not better. I'd be willing to wager that in this one particular case, that would be the case. And it's probably going to be the case for most of these, as long as there is a weapon damage difference. So keep that in mind. While, yes, off stats are important, getting the off stats you want can have a significant, means of approaching the way you feel about playing a job. That item level, as long as it's accompanied by weapon damage and main stat together, is almost always going to be what wins over. In the case of the weapons in particular. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Last time I asked you a question, it was a long-winded Eureka question. Thankfully, today's going to be quick and simple. So, is Monk, super broken? Or is there more to it than the log suggests? Am I just looking at it wrong? I don't raid or anything, care about balance, but I admit, as more of a samurai enthusiast, it's very sad. The changes were perhaps maybe made at the last second to try and please people. I think some of it actually is that, because some of the long time requests, things that they easily should have recognized were important parts of the feedback prior to Shadowbringers, in regards to a lot of people wanting Riddle of Fire's speed decrease taken away. And they didn't care if they lost a little bit of damage off the top. A Notman thing is still there, so it doesn't look like they really approached that. It seems like at the moment they're accepting that people are doing that, and that's going to continue to be the case. But no, Monk is busted. Monk is absolutely busted right now. It's insane what that job is doing right now, and you are not looking at it wrong. It is absolutely crazy. Even if you don't like playing with the Anotman tick at this point, it is just so strong. It is definitely taken what was, I guess, probably the most unhappy role overall was probably melee DPS. From the Shadowbringers changes, ninjas weren't really having fun. Samurai wasn't far enough ahead. Dragoon and Monk, people didn't really like Anotman stuff with Monk, and Dragoon people were okay with, but it was very samey. It was just performing better. With Monk's upgrade, they probably thrown a huge wrench into melee bounce. Honestly, I think with Ninja, they need to give it a machinist level overhaul, in my opinion. Samurai, I think too. I think they see to stop being afraid to give jobs that aren't Black Mage more DPS, because they're jobs that are designed around doing massive personal DPS, and Black Mage people have accepted is insanely strong and worth bringing to raids if you don't care about losing the res. So just give it to Samurai and Machinist, and for Ninja, start over, to be honest. It's just not working. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Hapman. Been watching you since doing those old school bestiary videos. I gotta get back to a few of those. I want to do an Eden one, so people understand the reference to the old Final Fantasy VIII Eden. I can't even remember what year that was. So this is my first time asking a question, so I have a bonus, whatever your heart desires. Steak. It's always the answer. I have a single lore question for you. I've been playing since A Realm Reborn, and one thing I never quite understood was the introduction of shards. So as we know it during Heavensward and such, we're on the source and have other planets, stars, solar systems, so on and so forth. Now we're on the first shard for the time, and I'm curious if the shards are just a copy of the source planet itself, or do they have an entire cosmos similar to a multiverse there? Okay, so that question got way more intense than I was ready for it to do. We don't have an answer to this question. Considering we essentially have to go between dimensions, though, for this to happen, I'd like to imagine that I'm actually of the opinion that the shards exist in pocket dimensions more so than exist and have entire cosmos. But I mean, when you look up at the night sky in those other shards, you can't deny that looks like the rest of the world out there. But does that mean that Midgardsormr, when he flew from the Dragon Star to the source, could he have ended up on the first theoretically if he had gone a different way? Or are these shards in little pocket dimensions that just exist only because Hydaelyn and Zodiark's conflict? So it's actually an interesting question that I'm actually curious to see if there is anything in game that gives us a more solid answer on that. But we do know at the very least in regards to the source, again, there are other planets, there is an entire cosmos out there. We confirmed this especially with the Omega raid series, where we found out that Omega came from a planet, then went to the Dragon Star, then Midgardsormr and Omega both came from the Dragon Star to us, and that Omega was trying to essentially find a means to get strong enough to travel back through the cosmos to get back to his home planet. So whether or not that same thing could happen in the other shards, though, I don't have a solid answer for you. Next one. Hey, Haps. Hope you are well. Doing better now that Titan's done. But like I said, I'm sure there'll be a question that comes up in regards to that somewhere here. A long-time viewer, first-time askers with a bonus of magical cookies, not raisin. I like raisin cookies. Cinnamon raisin cookies, or, you know, just raisin. I like raisins. All right. That's all you need to know. Question. I recently watched your dancer video. Very helpful. Keep it up. Thank you. And you mentioned the term burst window and burst phase. What exactly are burst windows and phases? Always trying to improve. Thanks. Thank you for asking the question. So very simply, a burst window or a burst phase is a point in which point in the fight where additional buffs, whether being provided from your party members or your own personal buffs, are available to make attacks stronger. So because Dancer doesn't have a very strict time usage on their fourfold feathers and on their Esprit gauge, and they're just making sure that they don't reach maximum and overcap on those, they can save those resources without overcapping for windows of damage where they have buffs that'll enhance the damage that they deal. This could be a Brotherhood from a monk. This could be Astro cards. This could be a potion. This could be your own technical step and devilment. It could be any of those things, and using those skills in those windows, even if they are windows that don't line up with your own personal DPS windows, are how you really go about optimizing damage on Dancer. Saving them, and anytime you're like, okay, where's the Brotherhood? Where's the trick attack? When are we all potting? When's the chain stratagem from the Scholar? If you really want to get deep into min-maxing on Dancer, it's having 2 or 3 of everything and then having a little bit of Saber Dance Esprit available, and only using those skills during those windows. While yes, most ideally, Dancers will look at their own personal cooldowns and go, okay, I need to have this for the technical. I need to have this for the devilment. I need to have this for my dexterity tincture. They also need to be looking at where everyone else's buffs line up in the raid. Where's the litany? Where's the trick? All those things I was naming before. And it takes a lot of work, and it's usually something you do less in like Party Finder or Duty Finder content where you're not playing with a consistent group of people. But if you are someone who can keep cognizant of it and optimize on it at any given point, you will perform better than those around you. Following up on that one, I guess, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. Are they going to add more to Dancer? It just feels like it's missing something. What are your thoughts on the nerf Dancer got? Nerf? Are you referring to from the Mediator? Because that's the only nerf I can actually think of. I think that if we still had the potencies from that, Dancer would actually be in I'd say a borderline broken spot. 50 potency on every single weapon skill, both flourished and not flourished. Oh my goodness. Dude, Gust Slash. That Gust Slash, that 50 potency buff that everyone memed on, that was like a 2% DPS increase because of the frequency at which Gust Slash is used. Imagine if all 8 of our flourished and non-flourished basic GCDs had 50 more potency on them. Dude, it would have been busted. Outright monk level busted. I don't think they're going to add anything more to Dancer until next expansion. I don't really think there is anything to add. The only changes that I would make are the ones I suggested in my own video. Saber Dance extending finished flourishes, or improv not requiring nearby party members to get the maximum benefit out of it for the Dancer themselves, so it's a little bit more usable and fights with a lot of uptime. But other than that, no, I don't think they're really going to get anything. Once you get into the chaos of optimizing Dancer, it takes what's a very simple thing to understand on the surface and really makes you dig a lot deeper. So you should definitely give it a try. Some of those things I've actually mentioned earlier would be very, very useful, I feel, for you to start practicing and look kind of into the depth of what actually goes into optimizing on Dancer. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, everything going well? Yeah, it's going all right. What would be your opinion on adding new trust to the system over time? Personally, I'm thinking it would be interesting if the role quest NPCs became trust as you either complete the particular role quest or the final one. Are there NPCs you'd like to see as trust, or do you think more trust can flex to multiple roles similar to the Exarch Might be explored again down the road. So I have both a positive and negative thought. So with the buffs to trust, I think it's now more warranted to have more trust available in the game. If it was still in the old values when I had actually gotten them all to level 80 before they buffed it for 5.05, I think it would have been a tough sell to add more trust because people were already kind of shying away from using it because of just the sheer grind that was going to go into it. Now that it's a system that, while you definitely isn't, fully accessible after you complete the main scenario, and still requires a little bit of effort, is much easier for the player to benefit from, I think it's a little bit more warranted to add more trust. And they did say that they were going to consider adding more trust in the future if the system was received well. Now that they've done those buffs, I think it's being received much better than it was before. I think they could do all sorts of things with trust. There's not really one in particular that I really want to see. Two that we didn't get that were available in the main scenario. I'd like to at least see those returned. But other than that, I'm not 100% certain. I'm more curious to see if they'll extend the trusts into older content, which they've also suggested they may do, or if they're going to find some other solution to making older main scenario content a little bit more accessible for players, which we've been talking about for a very, very long time. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could do whatever they want with trust now because it's very reasonable to actually go about leveling them. All right, on to the next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. First time asking, long time watcher. So have a bonus of your choice of a crazy ultimate 5.1. Dude, I mean, it's just, I gotta have Alexander. That's it. So now we've had a chance to have several weeks with all the new expansion changes, people calling the game, quote, casual bringers, unquote, have backed off a bit. What are your thoughts on the current state of the skill floor, ceiling, and overall gap between the two? We already know that player skill is a big part of doing well overall, but tanks losing MP management, aggro reduction. I mean, they didn't lose MP management. It's just, for some tanks, it's a bit different than it was before. Do you think the gap between a newer tank and an experienced tank is still significant? Do you think Shadowbringers changes drop the skill floor enough to make every single class accessible with next to no knowledge? No. And still be able to perform adequately? Or do you think there's a good way in games to help new players learn some of the nuances of classes to perform better without going for outside resources like the balance? Thanks, and I hope your first week of Savage treated you well. Thank you. So I guess I'll address these little by little. First of all, how do I feel about the current state of the skill floor, ceiling, and overall gap? Honestly, it hasn't changed. A good player is still a good player, a bad player is still a bad player. And I don't think any of the changes really helped make a difference between people who are incapable of doing mechanics, incapable of playing job correctly, incapable of understanding really basic prospects about the game. It's still a matter of wanting to learn more, and the people who don't want to learn more and people who just want to kind of skate by are going to continue to do so. As for specifically the tanks, I think that the tanks, I think with actually most of the jobs, the way that the skill floor and skill ceiling is determined, obviously better player has a higher skill ceiling, but the means through which players access that difference between the floor and the ceiling, I think that's really what's changed. For tanks, it is now about knowing your DPS rotation while also maintaining a proper defensive cooldown usage. Whereas before, it was about, when am I in tank stance, when am I not in tank stance? It's about optimizing in main tank versus off tank, or there were other nuances about it, I guess is the main point I'm trying to make. And now it's entirely about your actual in-fight DPS rotation and knowledge. How do I make up for losing uptime in a specific fight? How can I get more uptime in a specific fight? Very similar to essentially what establishes the difference between a DPS and between DPS players, I guess was what I wanted to say. And you think about Shadowbringers changes drop the skill floor enough to make every single class accessible? No, I think some jobs are still super inaccessible based on an individual's strengths and an individual's weaknesses. Like Machinist, for example, I'd say it's actually a really easy job to understand and to play, but some people have ping dependencies that are costing them entire uses of heat charge, which is a massive loss over the course of a fight. Entire GCDs lost in hypercharge, and on top of that, the cooldown reduction on Gauss and Ricochet. So suddenly that's out of the way. Some people aren't good at predictively playing a job like Black Mage, where they know where they're going to be standing at any given point, doing things like saving triple casts, using Xenoglossies for movement, ethereal manipulation in order to limit how much actual running you have to do. Those skills are still all inherently in the game, and a lot of the jobs that demanded things similar before still demand similar things now. So I don't think they've dropped the skill floor to make every single class accessible necessarily. I think it's just that you should be able to look at a job and at least understand the basis of what makes your job function. But I say that, and I've seen just the complete opposite case happen as well. It's a matter of, and I mentioned this last week, people just have to care. If somebody doesn't care, their floor's always going to be super low. That's just the bottom line. There's no if, ands, or buts, or any ways around it at all. So as for new players, again, outside of the game outright telling you how to play the game, I don't know what else they could really do in game to really encourage it. I mean, you have the Stone Sky Sea dummies, you have, you know, people use tools like ACT, which obviously is a third-party tool, not an in-game one, but there are ways to know whether or not you're playing bad in-game without using those things, but people have to care. And then that's when they go and research outside to see how they can improve. I don't see a means through which they actually do that in-game and actually get people who care about improving and who need to improve, or people who need to improve to care. You just can't make someone care if they don't care. Doesn't matter how many resources you give them in, out of the game. If they don't care, they don't care. Next question, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello, hi, long-time viewer, first-time questioner, welcome. In your endless sea of videos, I'm not sure if you've covered it, but I'm a bit lost on optimal materia melding. I did cover it, but I will cover it again right now in this question. I've had trouble understanding why you use a combination of different grades. Any help would be appreciated. So first of all, let me just say this. If you are not using crafted gear, you will always use grade 8 materia for the highest efficiency. That is what will reward you with the most stats in your guaranteed meld slots. Now, if you're poor or if it's gear that you're going to replace very quickly, it is acceptable to use grade 6 materia, which just has about 20 less stats on it, so not a super big deal, but also has a 100% retrieval rate. So as long as you pulled the materia out, you don't actually have a chance of losing any of the materia. Now, when it comes to advanced melding, which can only be done on crafted armor and weapons, that includes gathering, crafting, and combat, which we just got the combat crafted stuff just with 5.05. With that, you can fill both of the guarantee, or you can fill any of the meld slots that are on there, but you can also use advanced or forbidden melding to add more materia on top of that. So if, let's say you're doing a body piece, it's got those 2 guaranteed slots on it. You can then, at a 17% chance of success, attempt to add a third materia on there, which can also be a grade 8. The first advanced or forbidden meld can still be a grade 8 materia. So as long as you're over overcapping on stats, that's what you're going to want to make sure to do. Then any subsequent overmelds or advanced melds after that have to be grade 7 or 5. You can't overmeld grade 6s either. Or you can't go past that one slot with grade 6s either. So general rule of thumb for highest efficiency on crafted combat gear, and I'm only talking about combat gear because gathering and crafting follows its own rules and its own optimizations that are similar to combat, but also just we can't generalize it with the combat stuff. On a crafted piece of gear, you fill the guaranteed materia slots. In the case of armor and weapons, that's 2 slots. In the case of accessories, that's 1 slot. You then advanced meld a grade 8 materia, and then your remaining advanced melds after that will be grade 7. Now keep in mind that the only way to advanced meld is to have a player do it for you or for you to do it yourself. The NPC melder will not do advanced melds for you. So it's something that a very small percentage of the player base actually interacts with, but it's also why materia sells really freaking well whenever raids come out. So if you're not planning on doing any of this, and you got some grade 7s and some grade 8s laying around that you're like, I got too many of these, you want to make some money. Trust me. Next question, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays, in all caps. Hey Haps, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. I have 2 questions about Gunbreak. Alright, well, I'm not a tank expert, but I will do my best based on what I've gleaned from the knowledge of others in order to assist you. For more reliable information, I'd highly recommend looking at other resources that are actually focused on tank-related gameplay. First, which materia should I focus on? I've been doing skill speed and crit. So this has changed a little bit from the last time I looked, if I'm not mistaken. So I think all the tanks right now are looking to have 1523 skill speed, which brings you to a 2.38 GCD without any haste buffs. So any more than that is considered too much. Any less than that is workable, but is less and less comfortable the further you get from 2.38. For the other materia, people were doing direct hit the first week. I know Omni tanks were generally avoiding direct hit because Warrior can't really make much use of the stat. But I think now there's enough critical hit rate with melds and item level that people have started shifting over to crit. Also, so they can have an Omni tank set for Warrior. I'm not 100% on that. I am close to 100% on the skill speed thing now. The second thing, how should my opener go down to feel the opener is better than Windows for No Mercy? Will line up better with Gnashing Fang and Blasting Zones. So generally, you try to operate on a 60-second burst window on the assumption of 100% uptime. You work on a 60-second burst window around No Mercy. In your No Mercy window, you want to make sure that you are hitting your Sonic Break, that you're hitting your Blasting Zone, and that you're hitting your... I can't even remember the name of the AoE one. Am I logged into the game still? Yes, I am. Swap to Gunbreaker real quick, get the names of all the skills, so that way I actually know what the hell I'm talking about. All right, so I don't think what I do is actually the optimal opener on Gunbreaker, even given 100% uptime. But I always go, I get 1 ammo from Solid Barrel, and then I do Keen Edge into Brutal Shell, and I prep another Solid Barrel. So this is like kind of like a slow extended opener. I think there's one where you use Bloodfest to go into the opener a lot faster, but I'm not 100% certain. So again, not a super knowledgeable resource on this. It's just what I've been doing and what I've been told is generally the ultimate goal of if you have 100% uptime throughout your whole opener, which is a very important thing when it comes to Gunbreaker. So I would, towards the end of a GCD after Brutal Shell, I do No Mercy into Sonic Break. Then between the GCD, Bow Shock and Blasting Zone. They go right into the Gnashing Fang and Continuation combo, filtering in Rough Divides. You have to be careful with filtering in things like Rough Divides and other OGCDs because you need to make sure you have adequate space to hit a defensive cooldown as well. After you finish the Gnashing Fang combo with the last continuation, Solid Barrel, and that should put you at 2. That should put you back at 1 ammo, and then you'll use Burst Strike and then Bloodfest, Burst Strike, Burst Strike. And with that, I think you get 1 more GCD in there, which is why I'm not 100% sure if that's the entire optimal opener. Someone in the comment section, I'm sure, will let me know. I know on re-openers, you aim to get 4 Burst Strikes, where you try to do essentially similar to what I just said, except that you'll want to go in with 2 ammo and a Solid Barrel prepped. And then after the Gnashing Fang combo, you do Burst Strike, Solid Barrel, Burst Strike, Bloodfest, Burst Strike, Burst Strike, and that should all fit within No Mercy as long as you're at that 2.3 GCD. And again, 100% uptime. It's very important to optimize on what your actual uptime is in a fight based on boss movement and stuff like that on Gunbreaker. But anyway, that's the best I can hope to offer, and I'm sure there are mistakes in there, but that should at least get you on closer to the right track. All right, we're closing in at about 30 minutes, so I think I'm going to actually make this the last one. Apologies to everyone with the questions who have not had them answered, because it looks like I only scrolled down about 60% of the way. So try to ask again next week, say it's a repeat question. If it's something that topically you still need an answer to, and I'll see if I can get to it. Hey man, how are ya? Give that little devilish cat friend a hug for me, because it's adorable. I don't know where the hell Aloha even is. First expansion where I'm playing more seriously, and I gave Extreme Trials a go. Had a lot of fun and made me hungry for once for more. My question is, what was your experience with pugging savages in the past or present? As I said, it's my first expansion when I'm going to give this kind of content a try, and I couldn't find a static on Excalibur, mostly because of the time zone difference, so I have to pug it. I expect savageries to be more difficult than the first 2 extremes. I'd say that's an accurate assessment. Wish you everything the best of luck, and don't forget to enjoy the game as it was intended as a source of entertainment. Lots of hugs and other cringy stuff. Owl Hex of Excalibur. So thank you for the question. My experience... I've not pugged too much Savage in the past. I actually pugged through Deltascape 2 years ago. I had to pug through the first and second fight, and I had pugged to Enrage on the 3rd fight. And then I had a friend who was like, hey, we're going to be doing re-clears so we can get practice for next week so we don't go in and spend way longer than we need to on re-clears. Do you want to come? And so I ended up slotting in with them and doing 3 and 4, and then I never actually pugged 4. I'd pugged like 2 or 3 members of Deltascape 4 before that, and I had continued to pug 1, 2, and 3 every week after that, and I'd say that it was mostly reliable. The biggest problem with pugging in Savage is dependent on fight and dependent on how far you've actually progressed in Savage up to that point. What a lot of pugging Savage ends up being when you haven't cleared a fight is grinding parties that say they're like, you know, working on Enrage or working on a phase that you're working on and working your way up until you finally get the clear. And then in subsequent weeks, it's about trying to find duty complete groups where it's supposed to be a group of people who have already cleared the fight and thus should theoretically be your highest chance of re-clearing. However, with some fights, those learning progression parties get tougher and tougher. Voidwalker is a particularly big headache for people right now in the party finder because the average player is not putting out top tier levels of DPS, and it's also very frequent that people either die or get hit by Void Sent in there and lose a lot of DPS, and it adds up a lot over the course of that fight in particular. So you have sometimes situations like that where the party finder just has a really rough time unless you've already completed the fight. I always tell people that if you see an opportunity to do a 1 chest or a 0 chest, and you've seen the whole fight, you know you can beat it, but you just can't find that party that can finish it. Joining those kind of groups and getting that initial clear so you can get into the parties that you are skilled enough to get into otherwise. You want to make sure that you're actually performing well in those 1 chest and 2 chests, which, you know, the game at this item level will test you for, but as item level goes up, it becomes easier and easier to kind of skate by without actually being able to, I guess, perform adequately in those encounters. It's just that the farther you get, the easier that becomes, but you got to make sure you're definitely pulling your weight, as that'll especially play into things if you ever want to join a static later on down the line. But yeah, it's kind of awkward because I think Pugging Savage is, I know a lot of people who do. I've done it before, but it's something that I generally like to avoid because it is such an inconsistent prospect in North America and Europe. And so because of that, just don't expect it to go smooth. Be ready for a headache here and there. Be ready to question humanity at times, but ultimately be ready to also join that next party finder to try again, because quitters ain't gonna ever get anywhere. With that, however, I don't think I have too much more to add to that other than best of luck. So I'm going to make that the end of this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy, since I know Aloha is going to start annoying me for the other half of his dinner, since I have to feed him half at a time. Otherwise, he eats too fast and throws up. So I might as well end this before he comes in here. Meow, meow, meow. Thank you for the questions I actually managed to get to this week. If your question was not answered, try asking again next week with a statement that says that you're asking again. Or just if you want to try asking a question for the first time, just throw it in the comment section of the video below. That's going to be a wrap for me. I actually got to get to doing a quick intro to the Titan clear, doing a Titan walkthrough, and then also I actually think I'm going to develop the Titan guide first, the full-on Titan guide, and then I'll do 1, 2, and 3, because I actually don't have footage for 1, 2, and 3, because I have all the Twitch stuff on the screen, and I've already said in those walkthroughs that that's just not adequate enough. So I got to get through those, and regardless of how the videos do, I am 100% committed to getting back on track with guide videos, because I was terrible with it with Titania and Innocence, and I actually want to go back and do those, because now the strategies are really ironed out on those, and get them done, because it'll make me feel better, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for me. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Ask your questions for next week, and I'll see you then. So until then, have a good one, and take care.